What's happening, YouTube? Kenji here, and welcome back to Arcadia 7, where today we're going to be continuing work on the factory here in StarRupture. So as usual, I've been doing some work off camera. Nothing, well, not nothing, but not very much added directly to the line, because I do want to save a lot of this for doing on camera with you guys. But let's wander over this way, and I'll show you what I've been working on. First off, you'll notice that I have a couple of new drone receivers over here at the beginning of the line. I found that our ore excavators for titanium and wolfram were actually not supplying enough raw ores to meet demand for the line anymore, so I had to go do a little searching, and what I found was that while inspecting our original ore excavators here, it actually says that the titanium ore that we're harvesting here is impure. And so that got me thinking, I remember during running around on an expedition at one point that I had found a titanium node that actually looked almost iridescent. It had kind of like a rainbow shimmer effect on it. So let me go and show you what I'm talking about. So this here is a perfect example. Take a look at this titanium node versus this titanium node. You can visually see the difference in the quality of the titanium here, and that is reflected in the amount of ore that they produce. So an ore excavator on this pristine node is actually producing 8 ores every 2 seconds of pure titanium ore, whereas if I drop an excavator on this guy, this node is only producing 4 every 2 seconds, and this is just a regular titanium ore node. The impure node that we have back at the base is actually only producing 2 titanium ore per second. So this one ore excavator here is actually producing more titanium ore every 2 seconds than all 3 of our original ore excavators. So I threw a cargo dispatcher onto this ore excavator to send all of this titanium ore back to the beginning of the line, and has actually completely removed the need for those original 3 excavators. They almost never get triggered. I think I rewired one into the basic building material crafter, but yeah, this is supplying all of our ore needs for the base out of this one extractor. And in that same vein, Wolfram Ore also comes in the same impure, normal, and pure node types, but the differences between them are a little bit harder to tell visually, but I found it's actually possible to tell on the map. So if you look at, I want to say right here, we have some pure nodes set up. You can actually visually see the difference in the color of the pure nodes versus the impure nodes from overhead on the map, which I don't think you're really able to do with titanium. Well, maybe a tad, but I think this has more to do with the shading of the nodes around the mountain here. But we'll walk over here and I'll just show you what we have set up here for gathering up pure wolfram ore. Okay, so here we have a pure wolfram node next to a non-pure wolfram node. The pure is on the left here, and it has kind of more of a reddish, more saturated look compared to the non-pure node. So the visual distinction is a little bit less pronounced unless you're looking at both of them right next to each other. But again, we're doing the same thing here with the wolfram ore. We have an excavator here that's pulling up 8 ore every 2 seconds, and then we're piping this into, well, first a storage depot and then into a cargo dispatcher, and this is being sent back to the beginning of the line. And again, this has completely replaced the original 3 ore excavators. They mostly sit idle because this one node produces so much ore that it meets all the needs of our line. Next up, I've been experimenting with the idea of kind of wirelessly expanding our manufacturing capability on the line here, so I put together this little proof of concept here that uses 3 stacked cargo receivers to feed into, at the moment I have 6 different furnaces here that are all making chemicals, and then delivering them in the back out to a cargo depot and then into a cargo dispatcher to send these back to the line. So each of these 3 cargo receivers is pulling an individual item from our line into a separate cargo dispatcher back on the line, and then feeding it into one of 3 independent rails here so that each of the items has their own exclusive rail, and we're not running into any of the multi-rail shenanigans that are currently bogging down our main assembly line. Hopefully this will be fixed soon. That is, I guess, hinted at being addressed in the content updates that is planned for quote-unquote this month. So we'll see when that actually releases. But until then, I put this together with just the idea of individual rails, so we don't have to deal with any of that. And then in the future, we can attempt to redo this with multi-rails when they're working correctly. But it's just a nice, compact, remote manufacturing layout for a single item I would have liked this to have been able to be done with 4 cargo receivers. That way you can support any item, because we do have some items on the Mega Press that require 4 unique items as their inputs. But we can only get up to 3 cargo receivers stacked vertically and only 2 cargo dispatchers stacked vertically. So while I am happy that they can be stacked at all, the animation's a bit funky where the approaching drone will actually clip through the cargo receivers above them, and then for the dispatchers, they'll clip through the cargo dispatchers above them, but they do function the way they're supposed to. So this could theoretically be used as kind of like a wireless base, where you have something akin to our assembly line that we're using right now, but only for actually distributing the resources between different sets of cargo receivers and cargo dispatchers, kind of like an Amazon warehouse for these kind of remote assembly facilities. And then all of the actual distribution of items is just done from a cargo receiver into a fabricator or manufacturing building, back into a cargo dispatcher, then sent back to the main distribution hub, where it's then distributed via the kind of 8 rail system that we have currently, where instead of having manufacturing buildings on the assembly line, it's just a set of cargo dispatchers that will take in the required items from a series of cargo receivers and then distribute them into these remote manufacturing areas. So that could be a neat idea. I think it's going to be throttled by the capacity or the throughput of your individual rails in the distribution hub portion of that layout, but it is something that I think I will play with a little bit more at some point. But for now, I just have this one little remote manufacturing node here that's receiving items, manufacturing chemicals, and then shipping them back to the line. So here you can see those cargo dispatchers. They're just off to the right-hand side. Well, they're on the left here, but if we're looking down the line in the correct direction, they're on the right of our main bus, and they're just grabbing items off of the bus the way we normally do, and then feeding them into the cargo dispatchers and sending them off for remote manufacturing into chemicals. So we have, I think this is synthetic silicon, wolfram powder over here, and then helium-3 comes from our helium-3 base. And then on the main bus side, we have where we're normally producing chemicals here on the line. I replaced one of the furnaces with the cargo receiver, so this is receiving chemicals from that manufacturing node over there and then feeding it back into our normal spot for chemicals. So we do have the ability, if we kind of run into space constraints, or we just need a ridiculous number of these, or if we want to go with the approach of turning the main bus into more of a distribution hub rather than the actual manufacturing hub, this is something that you can do, and you would replace, you know, your individual manufacturing buildings with cargo dispatchers and cargo receivers. But again, I'd have to experiment with what kind of effect that's going to have on the individual rails that distribute items between those 2 points, because it does mean that theoretically you can have an infinite number. You wouldn't go infinite, but you could have far greater a number of manufacturing buildings than you have rails to distribute items between those 2 points. So it would have to be a balancing game of ratios. Beyond that, I've just been collecting some miscellaneous parts for unlocking more resources for us to work on in this episode. So I've already submitted the required items to unlock valves. I've submitted the required items to unlock batteries, other than, you know, the very last step. I want to do that on camera. So we'll get those set up in this episode. But in the interim between these 2 episodes, our delivery to Clever Robotics finished up, our 179k point delivery. And I also set up a delivery to Moon Energy Corporation. So I want to kind of start getting caught up in all of these lower tier deliveries that I've been skipping while focusing primarily on Selenium Corporation and Clever Robotics. So let me get these. We'll grab our rewards for this. So we're going to get Storage Depot version 2 from Clever Robotics. And we're going to get just a greater infiltrator LEM. Increases fog of war area uncovered by the player by 45%. Very nice, but not something I think I'll be slotting. So our next tier is going to be large personal storage and then multi-rail 5. I wonder if they'll be able to get the fix for these out before we actually unlock them. That would be nice. But we also have Solar Generator 2 coming up here, which is going to give us a 1,000 megawatt power production. in Griffith's Blue. We just have some war bonds, but I have been recommended in the comments to begin researching down this line in order to get access to the defense turrets and the defense towers. That's apparently something that we're going to need, so I'll get that set up. I don't think it's very difficult. They're going to want, what, some titanium housings? We have those in spades, so we'll get that delivery set up. But more importantly, we have the assembler here. So this is my goal for this episode, is to unlock an assembler and put one onto our assembly line. So we'll definitely get this set up. We are manufacturing turbines. We might have to work on production levels of its raw components, but we can definitely get this one delivered this episode, I think. Let's just take a look down the line here. We also have the compounder. This one we can also do. It's going to be a little difficult because we have access to hardening agent, but pressurized helium is the other thing that I want to do this episode. Last episode, we set up sulfur and sulfuric acid production. This episode, I want to set up pressurized helium refining. And I think that's also something that I turned in, or got mostly turned in between episodes here. If I take a look, yeah, refinery. So I did submit the required, like, 3,000 helium-3 and sulfur ore for pressurized helium. So that is ready for us to play with today. So we'll get that set up. Before we take off to probably our helium-3/sulfur area to set up refining for pressurized helium, let's get some of these lower tier deliverables started. So I guess we'll start here with Griffith's Blue. So I'll set up some delivery for titanium housing, and we could do electronics for clever robotics. But one thing at a time. There's only so much space for us to squeeze in OCLs in the line, so let's go ahead and start with titanium housing, and then we'll run over and set up some kind of refining for pressurized helium. Perfect. And then we'll set each of these up and get up here for Griffith's Blue, titanium housing, and titanium housing. And, oh, here they come. Beautiful. Okay, so we'll let that run while we go for a run over to our helium-3 base, which is actually, it's kind of a combination helium-sulfur base at this point, but yeah, we'll head in that direction now. All right, so let's take a look at what we have going on here. We have 2 helium extractors feeding into 4 storage depots, which then feed into 3 cargo dispatchers. So, I believe we're going to need... Well, yeah, we have a storage depot V2s to play with now as well. We're going to need a refinery in order to convert this into pressurized helium. So let's see where we can squeeze this in. I'd almost like to just pipe all of this over to this flat area over here, but just to avoid running a bunch of extra rails. We'll see if there's somewhere where we can do this on site here. So here, we'll drop a single refinery into here, and let's see what this is going to take, besides some more power, because we know that refining our sulfur required the input of some chemicals. So this is going to require an input of some sulfuric acid. So theoretically, we could actually just run a rail from our sulfuric acid refining all the way up here, and save us the trouble of having to do a cargo dispatcher and a cargo receiver. I might do that. Let's see. These both feed in from the front. We are a bit limited on rail routing space here, unless I flip this around. We could do, instead of facing it this direction, maybe we do something like this, and then we have space to run 2 independent rails. We just need to run 1 rail around for our helium input. Let's get our rail connector set up. So we're going to want to do 1 for helium. We're going to go down 2, and then 1 for sulfur. I guess we could, well, no, because we need to fit 2 in here, so we don't want to go off axis. It'll just have to not line up. Run these in with rails. 1 from below, 1 from above. Like so. This gives us the ability to expand, oops, not this way, but this way. We can expand horizontally if we need to add more refineries for more pressurized helium in the future. But for right now, let's start with, maybe we get rid of some of these. We have just like 4 awkwardly placed storage depots here that I just kind of set up in a hurry. Let me see, what does a storage depot V2 even look like? Oh god. It's considerably taller. So I don't think we'll be fitting this one in an overhang for multi-tiered production. But this could work well for one of these outposts here. We'll just drop it here. Let's take a look at what it looks like inside. So this is going to be storing helium-3. Whoa. So 4x4. So this has 16 storage slots. So 1,600 storage capacity. So this one building has the combined storage capacity of all 4 of these cargo depot V1s. I don't see any reason not to do that. Like, it is... The drawback is that it uses intermediate building materials, and it's obviously physically larger. But I don't think there's anything preventing us from squeezing this in here. It's not really going to gain us anything. We're not hurting for space here, but just to use the stuff that we're unlocking. Let's destroy these. We'll destroy this. Let's drop this in here. Come on, it's somewhere that we can run a rail from our 2 existing helium extractors. We'll do this into here. We'll do this into here. Before we fill this up. I'm not sure. They don't look like they're powered right now, which is perfect, because I want to unload all this helium-3 that I currently have. I don't need this in my pockets. So we'll stick all that in there. And then we can power this up by connecting this storage depot to our main base. There we go. Now everything is powered up. Now we need to deal with the output of this back to... We actually need a couple of distribution lines here, because we need to send one to our refinery, which is in the back. So this is going to be ugly. This is definitely not going to be as well engineered as our main line, but we're going to stick, let's say we'll go double wide base like this, so that we can do one feed into here and do a Y shape like this. That feeds all 3 of those to go feed whatever it is. I think 2 of these are feeding back to our main assembly line, and 1 is feeding to our chemical production node. And then we have 1 more output here that we can use to feed our refinery. So we do need this to be up quite a bit. I guess maybe we stick it here, go full height, and we'll just go over the top of all of this. We'll go, we can actually just go right into here. That's perfect. There we go. And then this can be distributed horizontally for more refineries, and also directly straight ahead into our refiner. So that takes care of our helium access. And power for our refinery, which I'm surprised is online, because when this was powered up before, we didn't have enough. Although we did have 4 independent storage units, so perhaps we're right on the cusp of our energy use. Let's just take a look. Oh yeah. We have 5 left, so that's what pushed us over the line, is those extra storage depots. So we've got enough building materials. We can slap on an extra wind turbine here. No big deal. Always better to have overhead. So now we need to get sulfuric acid from here over to here. Although, you know, we do have a second drone dispatch, cargo dispatcher already set up. And this is not connected to anything, so it might, rather than running a line, it might actually be easier to just do it this way. Despite all of my talk about not doing it this way.
I'm detecting increased rupture activity. Prepare for a wave.
Take a message, tell them to come back tomorrow. So let's, let's connect this through. We'll call this, I've been trying to get good about naming all of our nodes here, so we'll call this Sulfur 2 He3, and this is sulfuric acid. Something like that. So while that loads up, we're gonna run and hide from the StarRupture. So since we're right here, we do have enough for a cargo receiver. We can't drone it, but I'm just gonna put myself in a position here where we can drop this in right here. And then run this into here. There we go. Wave warning. All right, fine. Be right back. Okay. Back to what we were doing. Let's get this cargo receiver named. We'll call this HE3 for helium-3 base. Sulfuric acid RX. Confirm. And this is going to spit out into this line, which is going to hit our refinery to produce pressurized helium. And then we needed to go somewhere. And that somewhere is back to our main assembly line. So we're going to need another... We're out of intermediate materials, so we'll have to run back here in just a minute. But we'll get this set up so that this refinery can at least be running in the background while we're running back and forth. All right. So we're going to send this to helium-3 base, sulfuric acid RX. Here they come again for some reason. So we'll let those... Let's just make sure that this actually fires off. Trust but confirm. All right, there it goes. Okay, we'll head back to our main assembly line, grab some more intermediate building materials, and be right back. We're back, and while I was running back, our delivery to Griffith's Blue actually completed, so we'll do that while we're here, and we'll take care of that. So let's go ahead and make the maximum number of intermediate materials, and then we will grab our turn-in for Griffith's Blue, which is just some war bonds. Yippee. And for the next level, they want stabilizers, which we also have in abundance. So before I take off again, we'll set up delivery for stabilizers. I'm going to drop off some of this extra stuff that I have in my inventory here. And then we'll get back out here onto the line. Alright, we're going to have to grab... I guess we'll grab... We don't want to take away... We don't want to divert stabilizers from the rest of the main bus, so I guess we'll just replace this temporarily with one of these temporarily, and then one can go back up onto the bus. One can come over here to our OCLs. We'll set up Griffith's Blue with some stabilizers. There we go. And before I run back to our helium base, I want to patch this hole. And two, I want to set up the drone or the cargo receiver where our pressurized helium is going to come back in here. That way we don't have to run back and forth again once we get the refinery all set up. So, let's see. Yeah, right here. For production of... Yeah, this is lower. So production of nozzles. Yes, this is the last stop for helium-3 on our main bus. So after this, helium-3, or base helium-3, is no longer needed. So right after this, Let's say, how does this comes down to the left and then goes back up on the line. So we'll delete this, because this rail will never need to be used. And then somewhere in here...
I'm getting better at this.
Raptura is in its stable stage. The climate of Arcadia is returning to normal.
I'm happy for you. Somewhere in here, perhaps off to the right, we'll set up our drone receiver, and then we'll have to feed it back through... I guess we just go over the top of this. I think it should be pretty easy to do. If I drop a rail connector
Arcadia
here,
7 has finished regenerating.
we can go into here, so I just need to get an input line to this through this passage here, which should be doable. Let me see if I can set this up beforehand. So we'll do a rail support. Because if this doesn't work, then we have to reconsider our options here. But if we do a rail support from, say, here to here, it doesn't work this low, but it might work if it was a bit taller. So let me try going up a couple notches. And we'll go down. One, I think, is going to be too tall. So let's see. Rail V2 from here to here actually works. Perfect. It's a bit spaghetti-like, which is what I was trying to avoid with our nice horizontal rails that are at least aligned to a 90-degree grid, but we gotta work with the space that we have. So let's patch this up. This is gonna go rail V2. This is gonna go forward back onto our rail here. And then this rail here is going to be the input spot for our cargo receiver, which we will set back. And we're gonna have to put on stilts. We'll do here, 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 and here, and we'll delete this one. And pillar, 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 pillar. And finally, cargo receiver facing this direction. That is on the level. We'll do rail V2 out from here, into here. Lost in the noodles of rails here. We'll call this line Pressurized Helium RX. Something like that. So, now we should be ready to receive pressurized helium, and this is just in time for the space that we left ourselves up above here on the second level of our next manufacturing stack, which, depending on which item we decide to manufacture, might actually need pressurized helium. So let's run back over to our refinery and get that finalized and set up for distribution. Okay, we are back with enough materials in our pockets for our cargo dispatcher. I guess we'll put this at this end of the line, because we're kind of out of space here. So we'll put this facing... Oh, I'm in the way. Right where that needs to be. Cargo dispatcher. Facing this way. Actually, we can kind of align this right here. That way it gets power directly, and because if we end up doing multiple refineries, we're going to need a distribution line that runs kind of like this behind each of our refineries. And those are going to go out from the refinery into the connector and out of the connector and into our dispatcher. So we'll call this one HE3 2 line pressurized helium. We're going to be accepting pressurized helium, and we're going to be delivering to the line Pressurized Helium RX. And we are not, for some reason, manufacturing... Oh, it's not... Always read the instructions before you set things up, kids. It's not sulfuric acid, it's pure sulfur ore, or unmodified sulfur ore, so let's go fix that. Alright, so let's just rip this one up by the roots. We'll delete this one entirely, and we'll reuse those materials over on this side, where we have our sulfur input rails going in this direction, and we can do one node going off in this direction. Cargo dispatcher. Get up above it all here. That's going to be the right-hand line. Not that I think this is going to line up cleanly anyway. Where can we put this? We'll have to go up one notch to make this work. Rail V2 into our dispatcher. We'll call this Sulfur 2 HE3, and this is Sulfur. Confirm. We're accepting sulfur. We're distributing it to HE3 sulfuric acid RX, which is not actually going to be sulfuric acid, it's going to be sulfur. And let's just make sure that the sulfur is on the way. There it is. So let's head back over to the helium base. Let's rename our receiver, just so that it's labeled correctly. And we should see pressurized helium. Sulfuric acid RX going to be HE3. Sulfur. We can probably do the whole word. Sulfur RX. And let's take the sulfuric acid out of here. And we'll see what actually arrives. Oh. It's here before the drone has even landed. Here comes our sulfur. Our refiner is now refining. Here comes our pressurized helium. This is kind of slow. We get one every 2 seconds. That is a bit slow. I may want to consider adding a second refinery. We definitely have the spare sulfur and the spare helium-3, so let me do that. Refinery. Rotate it like so. Rail connector on the outside. Awkwardly hanging off the ledge, but it's still supported, so we'll go out, out. Down to... I think that was just level, right? Yeah. You need a 2-notch difference in order for this to work. Otherwise, the rails impact each other. Well, maybe not when they're offset like this. You need a 2-height difference when they're directly aligned in the center with those inputs, but when they're offset like this, it may account for that. But we'll make it match anyway. Okay, here's our input rails. This is going to be making pressurized helium. It claims unavailable items, but they're flowing anyway. Here they come. And we're working, we're refining, and we're outputting. So this should still be filling up. Yeah, we're at 63. So that should be, what, 2 every 2 seconds? Yeah. So that's the output of like one standard furnace or fabricator is 2 every 2 seconds, or 60 items per minute. So let's go back to our main base and we'll see, we'll make sure that arrives, and then we should be all set up for pressurized helium. Huh. These never actually started delivering. Oops. Oh. Oh no. Well, somebody probably saw me do that. Was screaming at the screen. Well, sorry about that. There we go. Now stabilizers are being delivered, so we lost a little time there. That could have been probably done already if I had fixed that before we took off, but there we go. Stabilizers are now being delivered to Griffith's Blue. So let's go over and check our helium, pressurized helium input. Make sure that that is reaching the line, and then we can actually set up some new assembly. Here we are, and there we go. 3 stacks of pressurized helium. Perfect. Okay, so let's take a look. Let's go back to our recipe terminal and see what we can set up next with what we have available. And I guess we could peek at the corporate terminal and see what we're actually going to need to produce next. Alright, so we're going to look in MegaPress. So we have access to batteries, which require electronics, inductors, and sulfuric acid. We definitely have all of that. So let's go ahead and insert the final data points here to unlock batteries. And we also have valves here, which require nozzles, titanium housings, and titanium rods, which we definitely have, although we are in a bit of a well, not even a manufacturing crunch. It's a delivery crunch. We're making a ton of titanium rods, but with the multi-rail bug, there's too much congestion on that particular set of multi-rails, that pole, to effectively distribute the titanium rods. But let's go ahead and unlock it anyway, because we're going to need valves either way. And I think everything else, we can actually unlock electromagnetic coil now that we have access to pressurized helium. But I think let's set up batteries and valves first before we go further down the list here. And let's also take a look at our corporate terminal. We have Griffith's Blue is running. We can set up now pressurized helium to Future Health Solutions, which will unlock the compounder. And turbines to Selenium Corporation, which will unlock the assembler. So let's see if we can set up one or both of those. Let me drop off some of this extra stuff too. Alright, empty my pockets. Let's get out here. So the nice thing about these cargo receivers is they have a secondary output out of the back, so that allows us, in this case, to hook this up directly to our storage of pressurized helium. So we can take this directly into our set of OCLs here, and then to Future Health Solutions, we're going to deliver... Oh, look at how much nicer hardening agent is, though. Well, we'll start with pressurized helium. And I think we might already have the ability to create hardening agent. So while we deliver this lower value pressurized helium, let me look at how hardening agent is set up. Hardening agent. I don't know off the top of my head what it's created in. It's a furnace. Okay. Do we have access to it? Do we need to unlock it still? It's currently locked. We need applicators. Alright, so we do have some stuff to unlock there, so maybe we don't go for hardening agent just yet. I know we're going to need it down the line, but that's going to be a bit of a sidetrack for the stuff I want to get through for this episode. So let's go straight into chemicals, magnet hardening agent. I think that's everything for furnace for now. Obviously, we still need to do hardening agent. And then in a fabricator, we're also going to need applicators. Yeah. So we have one more fabricator and one more furnace ingredient to create before we can say those are 100% done. But for this one, I believe our next manufacturable that we're going to want is going to be from a MegaPress. So we'll set up a second level MegaPress here. Oh, we hit our power capacity. All right, well, let's look at this first, and then we'll go do power. Nope. MegaPress. So we're doing impellers, we're doing nozzles, we're doing turbines. We now have access to batteries and valves. So let's do, I suppose, batteries. So we need to route sulfuric acid, electronics, and inductors into here in just a minute once I get everything powered back up here. Actually, this brings me to the other issue that we're going to have to deal with in this episode, and that is, we'll see once I get this wind turbine placed, we are actually right up against the limit of our thermal capacity for this base core. Let me see what this is going to add on to it. As I place this, we're actually over by just a bit, by 8. So before that becomes an issue, we're back online for now. Let me go ahead and first see what I'm going to need here. I'm going to need 1,300 helium. And, oh, I have 1,300 in here because I already started this. I put the meteorite hearts and I did some farming off screen because farming up 30 meteorite hearts on screen is going to be a bit untenable. So I already put the 30 meteorite hearts in here. I need to collect, it looks like 7,200 total helium-3, and then 1,800 ceramics, which we definitely have on hand. And I see along the bottom here, it says, upgrading the base core will draw the aliens' attention. Prepare yourself or die. So, let me gather up the materials here. This is going to be a bit, because we're going to have to wait for helium-3 to kind of grind itself out. And then we'll come back here and upgrade this, and see what happens. Alright. I have all the ceramics we're going to need here in my pocket, but it occurred to me that if there's going to be a bunch of bugs spawning, I'm probably going to need some more bullets. So let's hit the fabricator here, or the basic item printer, and make a bunch of heavy ammo. As much as we can hold. And we'll stick the rest into storage here. Not that, but that. Alright. Hopefully, that'll be enough. That's like, what, almost 600 bullets? So, I'm going to save real quick, just in case things go pear-shaped here. And then we're going to insert all of our ceramics and hit upgrade. Base core upgrade. Upgrading the base core will draw the aliens' attention. Prepare yourself or die. Okay. Base under attack. Is it? Are you sure? Alien signatures. Oh god. They're gonna be specifically attacking the core? I'm curious if there's a lore reason for that, if there's something specific about the core. Or the, meteorite cores. Actually, this would be perfect, because the Ruptura will just burn them all away. Where are they? Oh, there they are. Maybe the giant blue cloud? What are y'all doing over here? Oh, you're bullying my smelters. Okay. Knock it off. Oh god. Just hold down the fire button. Also keep an eye on the rupture. Don't forget we gotta run in just a minute. As soon as we see wave warning. Hey, knock it off. Oh, look at that. They're actually being, like, summoned through a wormhole? What the hell? These aliens are a bit more sophisticated than they would have thought. There we go, wave warning. I was like, is the bug event postponing the rupture? Well, that's certainly an interesting occurrence. Again, I'm curious if there's a lore reason why working with meteorite cores would cause interdimensional portals to open up and bugs to pour out of it.
Ruptura's core is unstable. Head to safety
At any rate, goodbye, bugs.
Area clear. The base has been detected.
Just get the sun to do your dirty work. What was that missing string entry pop-up it said in the corner there? Well, that's just in time because we were over our thermal budget, so I don't know what actually would have happened if we had more machinery than we had the ability to cool. Would it get destroyed? Like, would it just pick one random building worth 8 points of thermal capacity and just destroy it? Your base was melted. Okay, so I don't know if there's a visible difference. It maybe looks like there's a second rung of radiators here, but it's hard to tell because I did not really take the time to investigate it before we upgraded it. But it does say that we are at 2,580 thermal capacity, so we've more than doubled our capacity for new buildings, which we're definitely going to need here with our ridiculously long, dense assembly line. So Griffith's Blue is currently 23 at 37, so we have a little bit left to do there. Let's go back to work on making batteries, which we had begun before we got sidetracked with the little base core side quest. Alright, we're back at the end of the line, and we have our mega press for batteries that requires inductors, electronics, and sulfuric acid. So, let's get into build mode here. And going from left to right, so we're going to need to deliver these over to the right here. And we're going to need to string this up top. So before we even get to pulling items off the rails, let's go ahead and set up our input. We'll run this up top. This is going to be 3 individual rails. Again, for aesthetic reasons primarily. And then this is going to come over here. Hopefully we can do this without having to move ourselves into a rail connector. We can. Here to here. Here to here is fine. So our goal is to get all of our items over to here, which is going to be a little interesting with the way that this is currently laid out, because we have this rail connector here that's in our way a bit. But let me see. This is raised up by 1. Let's see. Before we decide how to do this, we can either go here. Well, we can go like we can go here and drop this down to the same level and go over the top of that rail connector. Or we can just go outside to here, bring it down to level, and then just loop around like this, and we can bring all of our items in from the side or from here to here. There's a couple different ways you can do it that way. But let's see where our items are actually going to be coming from. So starting from the left, we're going to have sulfuric acid, which is on rail 2. Yep, so this is going to come into here. We're actually already using sulfuric acid for whatever we're making down below here. Turbines. So we're gonna have to do a little bit of rearranging here, because the way to make this work more effectively is actually to bring it into the further back rail connector. Let's lock our Y here. Let's bring this here. Let's go down 1, 2. No, let's delete this first, because this is in our way. We're not gonna need this. I'll show you why in a second. Let's lock our Y and bring this down 1, and this is going to go to here. And then our sulfuric acid rail is going to go in, out. We're going to loop back around into our delivery rail, or our, what are we calling this? Our secondary bus rail. We'll go up 1 from the ground. Loop out in this direction. This will go this way. This will be our secondary bus. But we'll also go back 1 this way. So this will bring sulfuric acid into the secondary bus for our upper manufacturing. and send it back on a one-way street into our lower manufacturing. So we no longer need this connector here, although I did somehow, I thought I locked the Y, but it somehow wound up one square below, so I'm going to have to redo that. Like that. There we go. So that is sulfuric acid dealt with. We're going to need inductors next, which is on pole 8, rail 2. So we're going to have a bit of an interesting challenge here because we already have something else coming off of pole 8 that's going to get into our way, so we're going to have to divert to the left one. Let's lock RY and go up to the right level. Lock RY, we're going to go back. Actually, we're going to need to put this one to the left because this is going to cross. We're going to cross the streams here, which is not something... Oh, actually, we can. For whatever reason, it's going to let us do that, so we're not going to complain about it. We'll bring this down, one off the ground. This is going to come around this direction. I'm not going to connect this yet, because we're going to need some more stuff here. So our next ingredient is going to be electronics, which on my spreadsheet here, because I still have not updated it, is it's on pole 9, rail 2. We don't have a pole 9, so I'm going to have to just take a look here. It's pole 2, rail 1. So let's fly back here. Again, we're going to have some competing rail space here. Let's see if we can do the opposite of what we just did. We'll go to this level, bring it down 1. And we want to grab pole 2, rail 1. Bring that in there. That is valid. One off the ground. And then bring this down into here. And was there a 4th ingredient? Refresh my memory here. Nope, that's it. Inductors, electronics, sulfuric acid. So all we have to do now is bring all of those together. Going this way. And then, based on where this is, we can probably get away with that. It's a bit... We're getting back into the spaghetti, but the other option is to go out to this side. Let's just see what the other option looks like. So we can keep this as straight as possible. The other option is we go outside by 1. Let's lock our Y here. Bring this down to 1. Connect this to here. And then this is going to wrap up to here. I think that's fine. We at least don't have rails crisscrossing that way. So we're done here. We can put our extendable walkways back. Or install them for the first time, actually. We never had them here. But we'll just clean this up. Like so. Now we're connected all the way through and nothing's slowing it, so I'm sure we're gonna have to save and reload to get things moving. Save, overwrite. Load, alright, I see sulfuric acid moving. I see what looks like electronics moving, and here comes our inductors way off in the distance, up in the top right. There we go. So we're going to see all this pour into this one single rail and compete with each other for delivery space. There's the inductors. They're going to skip the queue, go right to the front. Pardon me. All zipper merged cleanly. And let's just work on our output here. So we're going to want a... Do we start? Well, we're not going to be able to do storage depot V2s. As much as I would like to... Oops, I thought I was in drone mode. Instead, I just jumped off the edge. As much as I would like to, they're just too big. They're too tall. They take up too much horizontal space. They're 3x3 instead of 2x2. So that would work with like the fabricators, which give us an extra square to work with, but these mega presses are too wide. This actually pushes us over the edge. So we're just going to stick with our storage depot V1s. Let's run this up. Put this here. We're going to need a rail connector in the back. Rail V2. This goes in. I hate when it does that. Right at the last second before you click the button, it changes targets. It was like, you told me to put it here now. Try that again. There we go. And I need to get back up here from the ground. There we go. Battery. And here they come. Our first run of batteries. So these are going to go... Let's see what our last use rail was. That was here. So our turbines are going into pole 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, rail 1. Pole 5, rail 1 is where rotors used to go. We're still using tubes for applicators and some other stuff down the line. And we're still using stabilizers for scanners, which is like the very last item that you can possibly make. And that, for some reason, uses stuff from a fabricator. But at any rate, the next available pole... Come on, say the line, Bart. Nope, I guess she doesn't have anything to say about that, but Griffith's Blue delivery is complete. So our next available pole is going to be pole 6, rail 1, which used to be calcium powder. It is now going to be batteries. So let's get that set up. Rail V2. We're actually going to put a rail support here first. We're going to put a rail support here. We're going to put a rail support here. Somehow. There we go. Now... 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Perfect. So I don't have to do any kind of weaving. We're just going to go one up from the ground. We're going to delete... This is 8, 7. We're going to delete this square here. One. And then just connect everything through. So... Here to here. Here to here. Here to here. And then straight across to pole 6, rail 1. Everything else can be brought forward, and that'll be it for this stack. What just happened? What was just built? Something got built, but nothing appeared. Huh. And then rail 3. There we go. So I did have to do a little bit of rerouting. The crisscrossing rails caused some incompatibilities with bringing rails forward. So I had to change. This used to be a rail connector that we were bringing the batteries down in. I changed it from a rail connector to, or not a rail connector, a rail support to a rail connector and brought it directly up. And I did have to divert. We're pulling pole 8 rail 2 being pulled into rail connector, and we could not actually bring it back into rail 2 without interfering with rail 1, so I just had to bring it over 1 and then up. So a little bit more spaghetti than I would have liked, but it's not the end of the world, and everything is still functional. And once we move on to the next pole, we'll never look at this again. So things are looking good here. We're going to bring an extendable walkway across here. Batteries are filling up. So let's look next at what we're going to need to deliver for Selenium Corporation. That was turbines. We have turbines right here. 400, 500 technically of them, waiting to be delivered to Selenium Corporation. So, before I box myself in here, we're going to set up the next node of our assembly line here. So we're going to go out 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Copy our pillars. One, two. 1, 2. Let's see. Oh, it's already Z-locked there. Perfect. So we're going to do 1 and then 1 next to that in the back here. And that should give us the ability to put our second deck on here. This is going to connect with platforms. This is going to connect with platforms. And this. There we go. So, the reason I set that up is because I want to bring our rail for turbines, which is right here. We're going to bring this forward. Oh no. Not showcasing my best work today. There we go. Another little oopsie. Making a lot of those today. At any rate, this is coming into rail 1 here. So we want to bring this forward into a multi-rail connector, not a regular rail connector. And then we're going to set up some OCLs here. Not enough resources. Interesting. Time to go fill my pockets again. That's fine. We should have enough to at least get these connected. So from here to here. And then 1, 2, 3. And we're going to set up to Selenium Corporation, delivering turbines for 175 each. Here they come. That way this can be running in the background. We get some more manufacturing set up. All right. That gives us some time to keep working here, because now we're going to want, well, I'm going to need some building materials, but I can at least drop in another mega press. Aligned to here. And here we're going to be manufacturing, I believe valves is our next unlock. Yep, we're going to make valves, which is another 4-item recipe. Titanium housings, titanium beams, titanium rods, and nozzles. And this is the last stop for titanium rods and titanium beams. So we'll be able to take 2 more items off of our main bus and free up some space to put some new items on. So let's set up valves here. Then I'm going to have to go and pick up some more building materials before we can continue. So I'll be right back. Alright, while we're here, let me grab our Griffith's Blue Turnip. So we've unlocked defense turrets. A defensive structure automatically aims and shoots at enemies, requires standard ammo to work, has to be supplied manually. Okay. Now we'll begin to work towards defense towers, which I think is the ones that are automatically fed by rail. So that's kind of the ideal version of that, since you don't have to go and hand feed bullets into all of them. Although I'm still not entirely sure what they're useful for. It seems like once you've moved away from your kind of away distant bases, they never really seem to get harassed by bugs unless you're actually at them. Because bugs don't seem to get loaded into areas where you're not currently at. I don't know if there's random events or something like that, but so far I've not seen too much of a use for these stationary turrets. Okay, let's get to work. So we're making valves now. Let's put our storage depot here. Just so we know where everything's going to live, let's put our rail connector here.
I'm so hungry, I feel sick.
Yeah. Alright, and then materials-wise, we're going to need titanium rods to start with. That's our earliest material. This comes off of pole 3, rail 1. So we'll drop a rail connector. Let's lock our Y, or our Z with Y. Pole 3, rail 1.
I'm weathering.
Oh my god. The survival mechanics are really not adding much to this game, I gotta say. It's more of an annoyance than anything else. I didn't drop this down, so we have to replace this now. Here, drop it down 1. Then go 1 forward and bring it up 1. And we're gonna grab pole 1, and we're also going to need not pole 1, rail 1, and we're also going to need rail 3, so we're going to have to double up on this one. And then instead of going directly in front, well, we do need this one, but I'm also going to do one to the left because we do need 2 items off of this pole. So let's set up our secondary bus, 1 off the ground. This is going to go in this direction, and we're going to need rail 1, which is titanium rods. We're going to need rail 3, which is titanium beams. And this is actually the last stop for both of these, so we don't have to continue them forward. So we'll just send rail 2 on forward. We're going to loop these out to here. There we go. Now, I'm not going to connect this up just yet because we do need nozzles. Nozzles are here. And nozzles come into pole 3, rail 2. So we actually need all 3 materials on this rail. So we're gonna have to redo this a bit. Just a little bit. We'll take this down. We'll copy this here. Bring it down 1. Bring it up 1. And then instead of doing rail 3 to here, we'll do rail 2 to here. Like so. And then rail 2 nozzles does need to continue on down the line. So we'll bring this up. Bring this around. So there's 3 of our 4 materials. Our 4th material is titanium housings on pole 7, which is right here. So we'll bring this up, lock our Z, drop it 1, bring it up 1. We said rail 1. And this is not the last stop for titanium housings. We also need titanium housings in pressurized tanks. So we'll bring that forward. Bring this here. Bring this way. And then that gives us enough room to put a rail connector here. In order to bring this up like that. Not strictly necessary, but it looks nicer that way. So that's all 4 materials we're going to need for, I forget what we're even making here, valves, right? So we'll set this storage depot to, oh, did we not select? Oh, we didn't connect it. That would explain it. Bring this to the left. Hook up the output. Hook up the input. Valves. And we're going to need to save and reload in order to get all this flowing, so let's get into a position where we can see everything coming down the line. We'll save. What? Why am I here? This is right, because I see stuff flowing into our mega press there. Oh, I think I think these extendable walkways don't immediately load in, so if you're standing on one when you quit, your player character loads in before the extendable walkway does, and you just fall. So, okay. I thought I loaded the wrong save for a minute. I was a little bit worried. But I saw stuff flow into here. Here it comes. This is all further downstream than the nozzle, so it took a little longer to get here. I need somewhere to observe from up above. Let's drop a walkway in here. There we go. So I see things flowing in. That's our titanium housings. I see titanium rods coming in. There's more housings. What are we still missing? I saw nozzles go in already. Oh, there we go. We're functioning. The press is pressing. Rods are going to be our biggest bottleneck here because they're already highly contested down the line. And again, we've got the throughput issues with the multi-rail supports. So this may run kind of slow for a bit. Luckily, I don't think we need valves immediately for anything in this episode. So hopefully, by the time the next episode rolls out, it's already getting close to the end of the month here. It's the 24th, and we're expecting the content update, quote-unquote, this month. So hopefully it'll drop in the next coming days, and then our throughput issues with the multi-rails will be fixed because everything will have its own dedicated rail, and we won't have to do anything to fix it. But if that doesn't happen, we'll come up with something to do in the meantime. But for now, we're just going to let this run and generate some valves for us, which are flowing here into our storage depot. Perfect. And then we're going to put this back onto our line before we run off to something else. Defense turret. Our next available line is Pole 6, Rail 2, which used to be Wolfram powder. Let's take a rail support. Drop this down to 1. And let's just double check here. We brought this down into pole 6, rail 1, right? Which used to be calcium powder, yes. So pole 6 is completely empty. So rail 2 is going to be valves. Rail 2. There we go. I'm going to hold off on bringing things forward until we decide what's going to go up top here, because we're still going to have to do some maneuvering and some building down here. So for now, let's head back to our corporate terminal one more time. Let's see what we still have left to make with mega presses, and we should be in a position where we just have to wait for our Selenium Corporation delivery to go through, and we'll have access to the assembler, and also for future health for the compounder. So we have 2 new manufacturing buildings just on the cusp of coming online here. We're going to hold off for just a bit for that, and then inside the mega press, we've done batteries, we've done turbines, we've done valves. We now have access to electromagnetic coils. So while we're waiting for those deliveries to go through, I will grab up the resources here for electromagnetic coils. And we can also do pumps now that we have access to valves, but we're going to have to wait just a little bit for 100 valves to get manufactured. It shouldn't be too bad, but we'll have more than enough time while I'm gathering up these components. So that'll be our plan as we ramp up towards the end of this episode. We're going to get these unlocked, and then we're going to go play with probably, let's do a stabilizer next. So we'll see you in just a minute. I said stabilizer. I meant assembler. Okay. Here is Mega Press. Here's our turn in for electromagnetic coils. 400, 400, 600 recipe and research points. There's electromagnetic coils. Okay, I think this should be everything we're going to need for our last turn in here for pumps. So let's see, we have 200 turbines. We have 100 valves. We have 300 impellers, and there should be 1500 sulfuric acid. There we go. Let's just insert our data points, and we've unlocked pumps. Fantastic. Now, I don't think we're going to manufacture those today, but I did want to just get more things unlocked for the Mega Press, and we do have... That's all of our major things. We can also do intermediate building materials, but besides that, we have all of the actual ingredients that we're going to need unlocked for the Mega Press. So, we're going to wait for Selenium Corporation to finish our turn in here, and then we'll play with our assembler. So we just passed 200k points here, and I noticed that we have a nice little treasure trove of data points here that we've been building up over the entire playthrough. So I think at this point, since this is kind of our final level of Selenium Corporation, there is technically a level 11, but it's just some LEMs. So since this is our final effective level of Selenium Corporation, I don't really mind dumping some points just to kind of hurry this one along. We still have 20k left, almost 30k.
You've been named Convict of the Month.
Let's go.
On your return to Earth, you will receive a certificate and a commemorative mug.
Like we're going to be returning to Earth. But let's claim our assembler. This is an intermediate production building. Really? Intermediate? What's high end then? I guess the high end is not in the game yet. Because we did see some concept art of some even larger manufacturing buildings. But an intermediate production building utilizes nanoscale printing to make products. So let's claim this. And let's head back out to the line. Our future health is still piddling along. It's got some it's using very unvaluable materials for turns in, so it's going to be a bit, but that's fine, because I don't think we're going to get to the compounder in this episode. Let me up. We're just going to, we're going to play with the assembler and finish up here. So let's get back over here. Okay. Back at the end of the line here, and we're going to look at our assembler. It's 200 intermediate building materials, and it's going to put a nasty strain on our core overheat charge. Actually, it's going to completely overwhelm this core. It's going to produce more than 140 units of thermal capacity here, so that's troublesome. So I guess before we can even drop this, I'm going to have to put maybe some base core amplifiers over here to absorb that blow. But let's see exactly how high it's going to go. It doesn't actually tell us what the final number will be, just that it's going to exceed 1,000. So let's place it first. We'll see what it looks like size-wise and how it's going to fit into our plan here. It does fit, and we want it to go over one more to here. Let's drop it. It's long, but it's not really... It's not too tall or wide. It's still only 3 wide. So I think it should fit into our assembly line just fine. It does look like a gigantic version of the basic item printer, which is kind of funny. And we've got, yeah, inputs. We have 3 inputs, so we're not going to have to worry about any 4 item recipes. And then 1 output. We can definitely work with this. And our very first item is the accumulator, which we have all the materials for. So let's set that up. But before we do that, let's see what else we can make here. We have generator, electromagnet, pressure tank, resonator, condenser, laser emitter, and scanner, which looks like something out of Star Trek. Okay, so let's choose accumulator, and we're going to want electronics, stators, and batteries. And this should be fairly straightforward to set up. So let's go back into build mode here. Oh, right, before we deal with that, we need 17 points of thermal capacity so that we don't burn our assembly line down during the next rupture. So we need to put it onto this base core, not that base core. So I guess we could technically build one more base core further out, and that should be shared between those 2 cores, is the way that it's explained. That a building that is placed between 2 base cores will split its thermal capacity between those 2 cores, but we should have enough intermediate building materials left over to drop in one or two of these base cores, or these base core amplifiers. So there we go. Now we have 1,040, which should give us a little bit more overhead for putting some, you know, we have to put another storage depot in here at the very least. So, again, we're going to get this set up. Let me just remind myself what we're getting here. We've got electronics, stators, and batteries. So, electronics. I'm gonna have to refresh my memory on where electronics are coming in. I really need to update the spreadsheet. I keep sitting down, meaning to do it, and then I get distracted by something, and then I start recording, and it's not done yet. So, electronics. Here you are. Electronics go into pole 2, rail 1. There's a lot in the way. That's fun. It should be fine. Let's lock our Z level. It just got unlocked for some reason. Pole 2. Rail 1. What? What's in the way? It's fine. Well, that's annoying, but we can accommodate that. We just need to drop this by 1. So we dropped it 1 before, we'll drop it 1 again. And that was from here. And it does not need to be continued forward, right? Because that is the end of the line for that. So this just needs to go around to here. And that should be good, although we may need to save a reset now. That might have disrupted. Although they'll rail hop. I don't think we've interrupted it. They'll rail hop onto one of these two. This is mostly set up for when they fix the rail hopping bug. We don't have to go back through our entire assembly line and redo all of these. So we're just building with the idea that they work properly in mind. But back to business. We're going from rail 1 here to here. There we go. And this is going to go to the right, so we're going to loop it around this way. So that's electronics. And we do... Nope, that's actually, oddly enough, that is the last stop for electronics. We just... doesn't feel like that long ago we set it up. We've only gone, what? 1, 2... This is the 3rd stack since we added it to the line and it's already done. Okay. Well, that's the end of the line for that. So next is stators, which is pole 8, rail 1... Although we do have batteries. We just added batteries. Let's see where that goes. Batteries are here. Batteries go to, here we go, pole 6, rail 1. So that'll be before pole 8, so we'll set that up next. Let's lock this. 1, 2. Drop it 1. Raise it 1. Pole 1. Bring this around, bring this to the right, and then we need pole 8, rail 1 for stators, which will also be the last. This is the last stop for stators. So we're ending a whole bunch of lines here as we end the episode. Rail 1. No need to continue it on. This will come here. We do need to set up our rail harness going up. I don't understand why you get these like tabs that come out here sometimes. I know why they exist, therefore when a block or when a square, a tile, is adjacent to a pillar, it'll put this in here to actually look like it's physically connecting to the pillar. I don't have anything like that nearby here. But yeah, sometimes they'll just like appear when there's no pillar nearby. I'm not quite sure why. 1, 2, 3. All right, here's our secondary bus here, connected to the rail harness across the gap, and into our assembler. Okay, that looks good. Now we're probably going to have to save and reset as usual. Unavailable items, that's fine. We'll save. And reload. We've got green lights awaiting items. Let's go watch the bus do its magic here while we put our walkways back in. Here comes electronics. There's batteries. And what was the other thing? Oh, here's our stators here. Perfect. Gang's all here. And that should be it for this stack. So then we can watch our accumulator work. Producing boxes. Same, we don't actually get to see like the model of the thing that's being manufactured, but I guess, well, they do have models. Every item has a model because we get to see them on the rails. I feel like we should get to see them actually being created in here, unless that's just what they look like, but I don't think so. I think that's just a generic one-size-fits-all animation. So let's copy this. Drop our storage depot here. Rail connector in the back. Oh, we're actually too far out. Uh-oh. That's fine. We'll just have to add some more supports for the deck here. So I believe we do 1, 2, 3, and then drop it on the 4th, I think is the formula. And this goes not there. One, two. 1, 2. Platform to here. Platform to here. And then platform to here. And now we should be able to put a rail connector right here. Rail out. Rail in. I'm leaving gaps here just for stability's sake. I know with you put too much stuff here, it starts to bog the game down. Accumulator. And here they come. They're our first items assembled on the assembler. Incredible. All right, let's do a little bit of cleanup here. We do need to bring these back down again, which is why this gap is here, because we're gonna need a rail support. And one up top at full height. And one right here. We'll bring this across. Bring this to here. Back down, and so we left off on pole 6, so this is gonna need to go right here. Like so. Patch our hole. And this stack is done. Now it's done. Fantastic. So we're gonna we'll let Future Health Solutions run in the background here between episodes, and that way we'll be able to play with the compounder in the next episode. So you go big mode here. I think that's going to be it for this one. Made some good progress today. Be sure to let me know down in the comments if you have any other tips or tricks or things that I should try out. I know a lot of people are expressing doubts at the long-term longevity of this system as we get higher and higher into the tiers here, as the throughput of these rails is going to be perhaps a bit too low to feed all of these larger tier assemblers at full capacity. But we'll have to see. Again, hopefully the rails will get fixed in between episodes here, perhaps, or within the next couple of episodes. We'll be able to see what the actual full throughput of this system is with all rails working the way that they should be, with just one item each on each of the rails. But we'll have to see how that plays out in the next episode, because that's going to be it for this one. If you've been enjoying this playthrough of StarRupture, hit a like and subscribe. If you want to check out StarRupture for yourself, head on over to Steam and pick it up. And if you want to let me know what you think of the game so far, then hit the comments down below. But whatever you do, I'll see you right here again in the next one. So until then, bye-bye.